Welcome, everybody, to the Resistance Broadcast, TRB. We're the official podcast of StarWarsNewsNet.com. I'm John. Thanks for joining us today. It's a Thursday show, which means we're going to be having a discussion about, of course, Star Wars. But, yeah, we're going to have a, not a deep dive, but we're going to get into what's been going on with the High Republic a little bit later, but some fun before that. James and Lacey with me, as always. And we have a special guest, Amy Murkow, who is the owner and editor-in-chief of 365starwars.com and contributor to starwars.com. So welcome to TRB. Amy, how are you?
Hello, it's great to be here.
It's, so we've kind of all known you for a while now, and, you know, we attended your panel with Clayton Sandell at Star Wars Celebration Chicago, which you knocked out of the park. I feel like you stole the show on that one, by the way.
Thank you. I was terrified, so thank you. That was my first panel.
Well, you couldn't tell. I think you did a great job on that, and it's been a long time coming to have you on, so appreciate you taking the time and joining us here on TRB.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So before we get into our topics and our segments and stuff, why don't you, plug your site and tell everyone what you're up to right now in the world of Star Wars and what you got going on and all that stuff.
Sure. So I have a website called 365 Star Wars, which started at the beginning of 2018, where I did the 365 Star Wars Women Project, where that was the intense year where every day I did 365 posts about female characters in Legends, canon, books, comics. Any Star Wars was fair game. All characters, anyone who worked behind the scenes. And then I started doing some interviews too, which was not something that I thought was going to be a part of it, but I think really ended up becoming the heart of the project. And I've kind of continued that. I'm on 550 something. So if you ask me if I've done someone, I have no idea. Like that information is out of my mind. But I do other Star Wars stuff too. But the 365 Star Wars Women is kind of that's the heart of my website. And that's, I just keep doing it just because I think it's fun to celebrate women in Star Wars, and especially women who work behind the scenes. But as you mentioned, I have been a contributor to starwars.com for several years now. And that's just, been really fun getting to interview people and do essays and, talk about that. And then something relatively new is that I started earlier this year writing for Star Wars Insider, which I'm extremely excited about.
Yes.
My first, and then actually that offer came in February, like late February. And I had to write my first thing in March, which when you think about it, I was just like, how did I was just like, oh no, you gave me this great opportunity and I can't process anything, They were
like,
it was actually,
we're going.
It was really nice though, to have something like a purpose, okay, I'm just going to turn out the world. I'm going to focus on Star Wars. Star Wars has always been a wonderful escape for me. And so that really was an amazing thing. And my first, I think November is the first one. It's issue 199. Everything got pushed back several months, understandably, because publishing. So it was supposed to come out in June, my first one, but it got pushed to November. I'm just still thrilled that it all is still coming out.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I love the deep dives that Star Wars Insider is able to do. And I love all the interviews they're able to do. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Congrats. That's so great.
Yeah, that's cool.
Wow. Yeah, so you have a lot going on. And that undertaking of just doing that, keeping up with that every day sort of Lou Gehrig, Cal Ripken thing where you can't miss a day.
I certainly don't do it every day anymore.
Did you do any where you I missed, so I got to double down today? Was there anything like that, or did you?
I never missed in 2018. I think that the latest something went up was at 3 p.m. But most of the time I did schedule well out. But sometimes like Lacey, I know I like your 365 Star Wars, and the entire 200s was a drag, which is that's 100 days. But I feel literally the entire 200s, I was just oh my God, what have I done?
Looks like I'm doing another pin.
But it was, luckily most of it, you could schedule out. But I was going to do it every day this year. But then when everything started happening in February and March, this whole year, I'm kind of just I'm just going to do what feels right and what I have time for and what I have the mental capacity for.
Sure.
Good for you. That's
because
important.
I was just I can't.
Themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone should be as kind to themselves as they can. And I certainly have.
I wonder how many people made I wonder how many people made public commitments like in February and March,
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to do this every day. And then the whole country gets shut, the whole world gets shut down. And they're like,
every other day.
Right.
Once a week.
I'm going to try a new
certainly
restaurant.
Glad that like it didn't happen in
week.
2018 when I was first trying to do it, because I really, really did that. Like I wanted a big thing that was like something I owned, something that was mine. I took it very seriously. I still take it seriously, but like not in the same way. Like, I feel like I've done that one. I love the
little trading cards that you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Which you gave out at Celebration. I have a bunch of them.
Yeah, no, and I was going to have them for Celebration again this year. But
I remember you and I talking about just our excitement for, potentially, doing panels and all that stuff that everyone was just so fired up for. And then we kind of like, I remember you and I talking like, yeah, the writing's kind of on the wall, but we're going to wait and hope that, and then it came out that they weren't having it. It was kind of a bummer. But
I was devastated because, my first celebration was Star Wars, Celebration Chicago, and I was very excited to be on a panel. Yeah. And I had met so many people, and I feel like I had done all this work, and my name was on 6 panels. I was and I was at least they're going to pick maybe one of them, but one, I was so excited, because there's so many people submit. So it's definitely a bummer, but obviously the right call.
Yeah, right. And then hopefully it holds 2022. We'll see what they end up doing there. But until then, we're going to talk about Star Wars. So we're going to get into it now. Are you ready to go?
Yep.
All right. So James, why don't we kick off one with the Force?
The Force is with me, and I'm one with the Force.
Well, you said it, John. We're doing One with the Force this week, and if anybody is tuning in for the first time, One with the Force is a little segment that the way it works is I'm going to give a scenario, and we each are just going to pick one thing from that scenario. So normally, you might be like, I don't know, I'm kind of in between this one or this one. You have to choose one.
That's me. They're talking
with the
about
Force. All right, so let's get into it. The first topic here is you enter an eating contest in the Star Wars galaxy. The prize, of course, is a brand new J-Type 327 Nubian Royal Starship. You can pick one partner to compete with you in the contest. What Star Wars character do you choose as your partner? How we normally do this on the show is the guest gets to go first. Amy,
yes,
who are you choosing?
All right. Well, I feel like I got to take the easy one. I feel like it's got to be Jabba.
Yes.
He is ready to be my champion.
I love that. I champion so bad.
This wasn't even planned. I swear this wasn't planned.
Do you have all your answers behind you?
I know. I was like, yeah.
So I have to go with Tauntaun.
Wow, that's got to be, if there was a draft, that'd probably be the first pick. That's a good pick.
Yeah, or at least what's it called when not pick but seed or something?
Yeah, ranking.
Is that what it is? Yes. Yeah. All right, John, what is your pick after Jabba the Hutt?
I mean, it's tough. It's tough to follow Jabba, but you got to go by how hungry this person is and how much they can probably chow down. So I'm going with the Wampa because he was really chomping, eating something while he had his other dinner, Luke, hanging in the other room, and he would just tear that thing apart. And you figure, food's few and far between. He's going to show up to that contest, get a little warm, get ready to go, and then just hammer trays of whatever that food is. So I'm going with the Wampa from Hoth.
All right, man, that's a good pick too. I have no clue how much either of those people's appetites are. You just imagine them to be ridiculous. Lacey, who are you going with?
So my initial reaction is to say Sarlacc pit and just push whatever
the
contest is into the pit.
That's a good one.
There you go, winning. But if I have to pick an actual character, it definitely was Jabba, because I could just see myself being like, ugh, and just shoving stuff into his mouth. That's what I would go with.
All right, so my pick, the way I picture this is I picture it's me and my partner, and then there's Han and Chewie, and they're together, and we're all in this thing. And my partner, of course, is Lando Calrissian, right? Because we're all gonna eat. We're all gonna go through the pie eating or whatever we're eating, right? And then at the end of it, Han and Chewie are gonna sit back and be like, "We won. We did it. We got the number right." And Han would have been like, "You're good, but you're not good enough. You know what I mean? And he would like somehow figure out a way to win the contest by.
You mean Lando?
Probably. Who did I
You
say?
said Han.
You said Han.
Oh, Han. Yeah, no. Lando is going to say, you're good, you played me, but you're not good enough. And somehow lay out some way that we won the contest, and Han's just going to be sitting there.
Wait, is Lando using like
wrong.
a fake mouth and the food's going somewhere else?
I don't know. I don't know what he did, but he won. He won. And now we're going to have a brand new J-Type 327 Nubian Royal Starship to sit next to our Millennium Falcon and what is it? VCX 300.
Yeah, you guys have quite the fleet. Cheaters.
Heck yeah.
All right.
All right. Next question.
Until I shove Lando into the Sarlacc pit, and then
And there you have it.
Yeah,
he's also in the eating contest.
Right.
All right. I'm not going to read this as it's written because I disagree with it, John.
All right.
John came up with the question. He says the Oscars need to change things up a bit and have a most fun scene ever
Most
category.
fun scene ever.
Yeah, which is
Really
absolutely
official.
ridiculous. But let's say they did do that, right? They came up with the most fun scene ever category. What scene from all Star Wars would you submit for consideration that would have the best chance at winning some hardware, as he puts it?
Can you just
Lacey,
hold on
we're
for
going
a
to
second?
you.
Imagine Robert
Sure.
De Niro getting up there being like, "This is the award for the most fun scene ever,"
Yeah.
and the nominees are.
Or like a stuffier actor.
not most fun scene ever.
Yeah,
Ever.
most fun
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only give it away
Ever.
once.
Not this year. It's just a special award. This is an MTV award, if anything.
Star Wars is really
The
trying to get back
Titanic
into the Oscar
sinking.
mix.
Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lacey, what's your most fun scene ever?
Jabba's sail barge. The part where Luke is like, "I'm ready to go," giving the sign to R2, and the whole battle scene of the Sarlacc pit. That's
That's a
like
good
prime
pick.
Star Wars for me.
That's a good pick. Because
I know. I almost picked what I picked for what I would show a new person, which was the TIE fighter chase scene, the Kessel Run in Solo. But I feel like this is just prime Star Wars for me.
Yeah, I like 'cause everyone's involved. You got Leia on the deck. You got
Yeah.
Luke doing his thing with the lightsaber.
The music is
Han
what
and
gets
Chewie.
it for me.
Yeah.
The like dun dun.
Yeah. And it's like that team effort. Like the whole everyone playing a part.
Yeah.
All right, Amy, what's your pick? What do you think?
So that was one of the ones that I wrote down, but I think that the one that I have to go with when I was really, really thinking about like pure fun, like what makes me like laugh and just be joyful every time I see it, because it's just ridiculous, is Yodo Dooku battling it out in Attack of the Clones.
Yes. Flipping around.
Yep.
That-
Pure
yeah, that's a good
ridiculousness,
one.
but also cool. So that's my pick.
When I saw that in the theater, my reaction was obnoxious. I was like jumping out of my seat seeing it because I never in my mind would have imagined Yoda doing the things that they had him do.
No, I mean, I remember the
people
audience
laughing,
reaction
yeah.
was huge. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
I mean, they just went insane.
Yeah.
Like,
When he like moves his robe and the lightsaber, he grabs it.
Yeah.
and then he's like, got his cane at the end, and he's like, no, like, I'm so sore now. Like,
That really took it out of me.
yeah.
Took it out of me, that did. Or whatever you would say. Yeah.
It took it out of me, that did. I think John's going to write the next From a Certain Point of View.
There you go. Let's go. Let's change it up.
The title
All
for
right.
most taken out of me that did scene ever.
Yeah. John, what is your pick for most fun scene ever?
So I had I was definitely eyeing the Jabba, the execution scene over.
You knew I was
Sarlacc.
going to pick that.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna go with there was the other two options were the escape from the Death Star in A New Hope with Han and Luke knocking down the ties, but I'm actually gonna go with the Kessel Run in Solo.
Yes. So
Just again, something about Star Wars that really gets me the most when it comes to like the fun stuff is the teamwork, and you have Han and Chewie piloting. Obviously, L3's in the computer. Lando's doing his thing. Kira's doing her part, communicating back and forth.
You've got Needles
Beckett,
dead.
You got Beckett hurting his thumbs, doing the coaxium, like the whole thing. And they're flipping and they're hitting the TIE fighter into the wall. Great shot, buddy. Great move. And it's such a Star Wars scene. And I think because it was built up in our heads for so many years. What is the Kessel Run? What is this going to be? They had to nail it, and they freaking did. And it's just and it has the music from Empire like in it going through.
It's so good.
It's just such a great scene, and I always have a smile on my face when I watch it every time. So I got to go with makes a little too happen.
I just love that he's like, I'm gonna do this move. My friend Needles did it. He died. You're like,
right.
Oh, okay.
Which was
doing.
Yeah, but Kasdan dropped that in as a Back to the Future reference to Flea's character, Needles.
Yeah.
Funny.
This is hard because I kept thinking of scenes and showing it to people who have never seen Star Wars, and I'm like, isn't this just the funnest? They're like, this is the tip top of fun, that the series has to offer. It's all downhill.
What else you got, Baney?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know, but I tried to think of it, kind of on that curve or whatever, and I was also really close to that Kessel Run, man. It's just it's too good, but. Since it's been said a couple times, I think I will go with another one, which is the Rey and Finn fighting TIE fighters in The Force Awakens on the Millennium Falcon.
So fun.
That is really good.
Yeah. It's just it's full of a lot of excitement. Obviously, you're up, you're down. You don't know if they're going to get away. I mean, they're going to get away, but you don't know like how, or maybe in some sense they do crash, they get caught, or something like that. They're not going to die.
My favorite is when she goes, "Get ready," and he goes,
"Yeah,
get
sure.
ready for what?"
Yeah, and he I think there's so many things in that with like them dipping into like the crashed Super Star Destroyer and stuff. You're like, I never imagined this to exist in Star Wars, and here we are doing stuff that's just like wild and is breaking my mind as far as what was almost possible, in a weird way. That gun locking up and needing to flip it up to just fire it the right way.
Switches,
Yeah,
so good.
It's all good, and also just the sense of nostalgia when it comes to like Finn sitting in the gun and being like, all right, I'm going to make this thing work. Right. It calls back to a couple different scenes and stuff. So, yep, that's that one. Good one. I hope that that segment doesn't get cut for time or something.
The most fun scene ever.
Ever.
All right. Well, we don't usually do this on One with the Force. But it was a good Twitter question, and so we figured we kind of work it in here. And the question was actually from Pedro Grigas.
Yeah.
At
Grigas,
Pedro Grigas. Yeah. So thanks for the submission there. They wanted to know, name one way the prequel trilogy made the original trilogy better for you, and one way it made them worse. So this is kind of a twofold question. John, we're going first with you on this one.
Better is just the way Palpatine took power. I think that is a brilliantly constructed story by George Lucas that really was believable, and how he weaseled his way up the chain and manipulated people who were vulnerable in certain spots, and how he became this emperor. Because in the original trilogy, just like, he's the emperor, that's all we need to know, he's the guy. But then like seeing him and using the same actor too really makes that continuity work. And like just how like they faithfully got that to work, because I forget the casting director's name from Return of the Jedi who casted him at 35 years old. Like that's a gold mine for George Lucas 16
just
years
luck.
later.
Yeah.
He just like, we have this guy and he's the exact age. Like George Lucas is like, I'm a genius. It's like, you got lucky, George. But and then for me the worst though is, I hate to say it, people are gonna get mad at me, but having C-3PO and R2 in the prequels at all is a big problem for me. Just because
I'm mad at you.
Explain. I know.
I thought you were gonna say him building C-3PO. That's what I thought.
It's just like there's so much you have to then overlook in the original trilogy. Like, why doesn't this person recognize him? How come this person doesn't recognize him? How come he doesn't remember this? How come he doesn't? It was a fan service thing to me. George Lucas like, oh well, I can't bring back the humans because they weren't around then, or I can't de-age them or whatever. Let me bring the droids in, and then we're gonna bring Chewie in, and blah blah blah. But I think just them being there throughout that whole thing, and I know the whole R2 with the wills, and I get that, but it just, I wish he made the harder choice of not including them. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, but for me, that's just for me.
All right, Lacey, what are your two picks? in one with the Force.
Yeah, the tough one is the worst for you because I can't honestly think of something that's made worse for me. I'm going to start with what's made it better. The background information about Kenobi and his life and his relationship with Qui-Gon Jinn and how he worked with Anakin and knew Anakin, because in the original trilogy, obviously, he's like, oh, I knew your father, and then you learn the background. So that made the original trilogy better for me. Worse, I honestly don't really know. I probably should have given this more thought. I don't know if anything's made worse for me. I don't know if it's like, yeah, I don't have one, honestly. I can't think of anything that's worse besides like him building C-3PO is the one thing that I'm like, that's a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because I'm going to let Amy go and I'll go last on this one, but I thought it was kind of odd because I found the exact opposite to be true. I could think of a ton that made the original trilogy worse.
Oh, really?
But I was having a hard time coming up with something that really like truthfully made it better.
Maybe I'll think of something.
Amy, what do you got?
So for the better, it's similar to what Lacey was saying, but really seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan and their relationship, like seeing it grow, seeing it go through the different phases, I thought then made their battle in A New Hope, like that whole scene is so different to me now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that really just like, it, you know, like it's just, and I always think like, oh my gosh, like it was always sad, but like now there's just so much emotion, so much history behind it that like, I feel like that was really the best thing. I think I'm not really sure. I'm kind of with Lacey too. I don't know if anything is worse, but like my biggest issue with the prequels is the lack of women and how Padme went from like super strong, like arguably main character in the Phantom Menace.
That's it. Yes.
Like anxious, pregnant, sad woman who was like all by her alone and just died because she like, you know, like for no really good reason. Like I feel like that then I don't have any kind of issue about, I never really worry about them breaking canon. Like I don't have time for that. I can't take on that. Like I just like it, like, so it doesn't bother me. Like in Return of the Jedi, when like, you know, like Leia talks about seeing her mom and that she died, like that doesn't bother me that it's a canon thing, but it kind of bothers me that Padme was just kind of taken out the way that she was. And so when I see the prequels, like, and I think about it, and I do obviously because of my 365 project, think about how women are represented in there, like that always, you know, it bothers me. It bothers me that there's female Jedi and they don't talk, like, and it bothers me how Padme was, all of her good stuff was cut out of Revenge of the Sith.
100%. We actually did a commentary for Attack of the Clones, and one of the things I said was like, I don't understand how she went from the beginning of the movie being this like strong government official to being like, no, I'm not interested in you at all, this is weird, to being like, okay, I guess I love you. And I'm like, wait, how did you get from point A to point B so quickly?
Well, I think it's all like kind of valid, but like there isn't like, you know, those deleted scenes in Attack of the Clones explain so much, and like you only showed part of her when there was like, she's so much more of a full rounded character, even from what George created, but you just he just cut out the most, you know, interesting things about her.
100%. I agree with you. That's it. That's my answer.
So real quick to not thwart the direction here, but so does it hurt you knowing that Leia's only memory of her mother is that she was sad?
Well, I mean, I don't even know, because I like, to me, like that just doesn't even make sense anymore. And so like, I think that that's kind of like a false memory of Briha, like, you know, maybe like, I mean, because, I mean, she obviously can't have a memory of Padme.
That's what I think too.
And so like, it, you know, it definitely just makes me sad that I think that it was, I don't like it when female characters get killed off just to have a man do something. Like, you know, just to promote like some sort of journey for him. Like, I don't think that she had to die. Like, and so I wish that she would not have.
Yeah. I think we had a discussion once. What would have happened if she survived? It led to interesting possibilities.
One of the coolest pieces of concept art is the one where she has the twins on her back and she has like a knife. And I was like, hells yeah, I'm all for this, Padme.
It was a concept art?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I always kind of took the idea that, you know, like, what does she remember of her mother? She says images, really. And then in one of the comics, they have Leia like see a giant image of her, like a painting or a piece of art. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like, oh, I think they're just playing with the idea of what she remembers is images, because everything they have are like holograms. So an image to her would be like a piece of art that's like something physical. Right. So I think they're playing off the ideas like pictures, really. Like, I don't remember her in person, but I remember seeing pictures or images of
with
her.
all the stuff that they've been doing. Like,
That's all
I
I
think that
have.
it's very realistic that we're going to find out that some handmaidens went to Alderaan and served, Briha to kind of like watch over the child of Padme. Like, I think that there's so much, of the handmaidens kind of coming around and like being involved. Like, I wonder if like, we'll end up seeing that like handmaiden like was able to tell her about her mom too. Like, I mean, I think they've opened up a lot of really interesting things about it, which I think is nice, just because I think that, Padme, like the handmaidens weren't even a big deal, like in Revenge of the Sith, which is another one. I love that movie, but like it's one of my beefs with the films is that I was just like, where, why is she talking to C-3PO? Like, she has all of these women that work for her. Like, where are they?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so on mine really quick, to, I guess, get back on the train of what we're doing one with the Force or whatever. Mine, see, I'm listening to some of your guys's, and it all kind of feels like things we liked about the prequels and things we didn't like about the prequels. And I was really stuck on like how these things affected the original trilogy for me, which is why I was kind of like, I'll say my good one for instance was the fact that they did Order 66 and how they executed all of that. No pun intended. Because to me,
nice.
I feel like that when you watch the original trilogy, there always was something cold about like before the Dark Times, before the Empire, and you kind of just like make up this idea of like what happened. But I think Order 66 and the way that it was done elevated that, so that when you watch the original trilogy and you hear him talk about that event or when all that went down, you are better now for having seen it take place. Because the prequels did it the way that they did it. The original trilogy has now been elevated and it becomes a better movie because of that. On the other end of that spectrum, I find it a lot easier to think like, how did the prequels kind of mess with and potentially taint your thoughts on the original trilogy were really easy. And I don't even necessarily believe this. I almost even had this in my good category for me personally. But just to give an example, like midichlorians, like people, like just because that exists, people are like, that ruined the original Star Wars for me. I don't necessarily believe that, but I think it's a good example of how sometimes the prequel movies did something that kind of changed people's perspective on, now when Obi-Wan's telling you about the Force or when Yoda's telling you about the Force, you're picturing it differently, and it wasn't for the better. It didn't elevate the movie.
Well, do you have one for you then? Like you're throwing out a devil's advocate there, but is there one where
No, because I think my time here to speak is to say that I think there were a lot of things about the prequels that in generally it didn't meet the level of what people expected out of the original trilogy. So it is kind of hard to come up with like specific things that actually elevated it, which is why I put more on the emphasis if I found one. I think it was Order 66 really did a great job of making the original trilogy better.
Right.
But let's move on to that last question. The High Republic is set to debut in January. What is one thing you hope to take away from this new set of literary releases is an unexplored era from Star Wars canon? So we're getting ready to head into the crazy, wild High Republic era, and if you could pick one thing that we hope we take away from what this inevitably becomes, what would that one thing be? Lacey, I'm going to start with you on this one. What do you think?
More strong women Jedi to love. Right now we really only have some from the prequels and really Rey. So I'm just really looking forward to all these other women characters that are coming out, like Avar Kriss and stuff. Like, I'm really excited to see what her character does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good answer. John, what do you think?
Freshness. We keep hearing these things like, oh, well, we're going to tell these new stories. And then there's always the pull back to like some kind of connectivity. Like we're going to have all these cameos in Mando now.
Yoda.
Yeah. And so they're bringing in Yoda. So I hope they didn't go through too many like rewrites or stuff where they're like, well, we got to like wedge more stuff in to bring in general audience. I hope they just keep their foot down and say, well, we may not sell 1 billion of these books, but these are going to be stories that are going to be like, this is this era. This isn't like Star Wars taking place here. This is what's going on. And I hope the Jedi, we get a different a vibe from the Jedi than even like Qui-Gon and when the Jedi were still at the top of their game in the prequels. I want a different vibe completely from the Jedi, so I have a new understanding of what they were at their height. So I hope it's just something fresh. I guess I don't know if that's a general term, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. For me, real quick, I think my answer is going to just be camaraderie. So I would like to see more people get invested in the books and the stories that are evolved around the books. I feel like pretty often when we have new novels and junior novels and things like that come out, there's only a certain group of people that will take the dive into it and fit it into the canon and have a discussion about it. Like we do regular Resistance broadcast episodes, and then we do book discussion episodes, and the book discussion episodes never hit those numbers because there's only a core group of people who are even going that deep into it anyway. I would hope that if there was any possibility that the High Republic could do it, it will do it, that it could somehow break down that wall and be like, if you're ever going to get into the books, don't worry about the other stuff. Get into these books. We're really proud of this era. We're really proud of the stories that we're telling. We really think it's a good thing. And good or bad, let's have the discussion. I just hope that more people get involved. That would be my takeaway. Amy, take us home. What do you think? What's your one?
So I feel like my answer is super nerdy, but it's just because I like
Good.
in general. No, it's like super like. But like I know that the Nile are like going to be like the baddies, and I'm excited to like learn more about the Nile. But like I really just want to learn more about like Jedi and Sith lore and like understand what the Jedi understand about the Sith. I think that like as far back as we've gone, I really, really loved Kevin Scott's Dooku Jedi Lost. I loved all the stuff about like that was like a dream for me. I was so excited about it. It's one of the reasons why I'm excited that he's such a big part of this era, but like understanding like all of the artifacts and all of like the different stuff, like how much were they, I think that Yoda comes off so poorly in that story because he's just like, no, it's fine. The Sith, it's fine. It's in the past. And I'm curious of like,
they're never gonna bother.
Yeah, no, I was like,
ever.
It's gonna be fine. Yeah.
Great call, Yoda.
Yeah, it's like he's like with his coffee mug, like it's fine. But, so just understanding more of like the history of the Jedi, and I'm hoping that I would be shocked if the Sith aren't in there a little bit, and especially as they go on, like understanding a little bit more of like their past interactions.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good answer.
I like that.
Well, as we're sitting here talking about the High Republic, we have an entire discussion to get to, and John is going to take us right into it. What's up, John?
Love the segues, right?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
So this week's discussion, the High Republic expectations. So Star Wars kind of flipped the script here, where for the first time ever, they're kicking off an era with literary releases and hope to eventually, and they haven't officially said this, they've actually said the opposite, they said they're not, but I imagine they would like to see this become successful where they can expand upon this into other mediums and maybe do some live action, some animation and stuff in this era, if they find that it's picking up steam. So I find it interesting. I've had my theories about this, that maybe they were supposed to be connected to those Benioff and Weiss movies, who they claimed that their movies were taking place 200 years before the prequels, and that's exactly when this is taking place. This project has been delayed a little bit because they backed out, so that's, again, my tinfoil hat theory. But here we are. We're kicking off a new era in Star Wars with books and comics. It's the first time they're doing it. James, like you said, maybe that's a clean slate for people who feel overwhelmed, where they can be like, all right, I can start here with this crawl in page 1. Let's go. Let's do it. So I just wanted to maybe have a discussion on what the realistic expectations are, and maybe what we as fans, especially, you, Amy, I know you wanted to talk about the High Republic. So, let's start with you. What are your expectations for this era? Where do you see a ceiling with the High Republic, and where do you see this era going? So anything you want to talk about with it, just have at it.
I was really surprised that they only went 200 years back. I really thought that they probably would go further out. And to me, that's a definite sign that with live action that they're saving it for that. Like I imagine that they're doing that. I wonder if they're going to kind of try to have like High Republic 200 years to Phantom Menace and just really allow their publishing books and comics to expand those 200 years. One of my concerns, I'm concerned that people are going to be turned off, that like they're going to be like, oh, well, I'll read the adult novel, but I'm not going to read the YA, or I'm not going to read the middle grade, or I'm not going to read the comics. And I think what's nice is that I don't think you have to. Like, it's not like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have to read them in order. Mm-hmm. Like my understanding is that you can really kind of take what you want, which is great. But I would really encourage people to not be turned off by, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's middle grade. Like that's like for tiny kids. Like, why would I read that? And it's not. Like, I mean, it's like it's aimed at different ages, which I think is nice. But like all of them, if you enjoy Star Wars movies, like you enjoy kid stuff. Like you already do. So like, I mean, you like don't get turned, And I think that, for some people, this might be their first experience reading comics. Like there are a lot of people who just feel overwhelmed by the comics, don't know where to start. And this might be an interesting time for them to kind of come into it. When James was talking, I also think that like when I do the 365 Star Wars Women post, a lot of times I'll run into a really interesting female character and like she's in one book or she's in one comic arc and you never see her again. And then you get another interesting character and like maybe they're in a video game in one book, but like that's it. And I really want to see more interconnectivity. I want to see different authors get a chance to write different characters and see them at different parts of their lives and really just kind of not be so concerned about the good guys and the bad guys, but just like everyone's kind of struggle in here. Like I'm really fascinated with more and more Star Wars stories that are experiencing like the gray, not necessarily the gray Jedi, which, I know that everyone's excited about the gray Jedi, but just, people who are trying to figure out like, where is my place in this universe? What do I do? Like, and not just have Jedi and Sith, but like, who are all the other people like, in between. Have more archivists. That's all I want.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Who was Jocasta Nu 200 years before Jocasta Nu?
Right. Who was right.
Who Jocasta Nu?
Oh, geez.
No one Jocasta Nu.
I get it. No, not bad. Not bad. So
no, I definitely think that that in today's Marvel world, they somehow like reinvigorated this idea that you want to see everybody's story and then see all those stories kind of come together and how they all fit together. And then after that initial like Avengers story, you just started seeing like a movie that had these two characters and how they buddied up. And then you saw a movie that had these two characters and how they buddied up and stuff. And it all kind of just got so interconnected, all leading up to specifically Endgame. But I think like because we got that and people reacted really well to that, we generally kind of now are looking at our Star Wars was like, why isn't our Star Wars like that? And I think with the movies, they generally were trying to stay on track with how Star Wars has always been told. But when it comes to something smaller like this, like the High Republic stuff, these authors are probably considering their properties more like comics have always kind of treated characters. Like this character can exist in this book, but they are also going to exist in all these other pieces of property in a little way. And that type of stuff is the things that I think has been getting the nerds excited for a long time, for decades. Like they like to see how things are connected and put together, and they're willing to pay for those things. Like if I really like one of these characters, I might be interested in checking out some of these other books, even where they're like subsequent or background is just so much as they show up in this. Like I think there's a small percentage of people who are buying Squadrons just because Hera Syndulla was in the trailer. And they're like, now I gotta know what she's doing because I loved this other property with her in it. So I think that High Republic could potentially be that. We just gotta, and I think that clashes against, even though that's the idea of where the canon books are, is they all fit in and they're all connected to the larger canon. The books don't really always connect with themselves unless they're sequels. I find it very rare that like Alexander Freed would have a character that was in Chuck Wendig's Aftermath, not, you know what I mean? And they're swapping back and forth between the books. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. But it hopefully will in the High Republic stuff. I don't know. Am I crazy? Is anyone thinking it isn't that at all?
I mean, that's a good question. Yeah.
No, I think that that's the point of it, is just to have like, here's a world that we're going to play around in, and it's going to be more interconnected. And it's not I think a lot of people think of the Star Wars books as like, oh, that's just like filling in a gap, like, or it's giving a backstory, or it's giving an explanation. And I mean, a lot of times it is, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Like, it can still be a really, really good story. But some of them, they're like, oh, I don't want to read like a tie-in. Like, I want to read something original. I want to read something, you know, new and different. Like, I want to see something different. And I think that because it's so far off from the Skywalker saga, like, that really, you're just dropping a whole bunch of baggage, you know? Like, I would assume Palpatine isn't alive, you know? Like, like, unless like there's something.
Oh, yeah.
But
That's what we said going into the sequel trilogy.
But I think that you can just see a whole bunch of interactions that you haven't seen. And, you know, I think the idea of like one big tragedy, like, I think that like them taking so much time to talk about like hyperspace and like hyperspace lanes and like, how does that all happen? I have always kind of taken that for granted, that in Star Wars, people could just go wherever they wanted for the most part. Solo talked a little bit about like, no, like, you know, like, it's a little bit hard to get there, you know, like, and I think that that's kind of, you know, interesting. I don't know if you guys read I've read all the Thrawn books. The first 3 Thrawn books I thought were fine. Like, I enjoyed them, but like, I adored the first one of the Thrawn Chaos, because I also felt
Chaos,
like it was
Chaos Rising
far enough away from the movies and the thing that it was really its own little thing. And it did start to connect a little bit and kind of made references, but I felt like it gave me a whole new part of the Star Wars universe that I didn't have access to before. And I really, like, I loved it. Like, I was shocked that I loved it so much. Like, because I'm a sucker. I like most Star Wars. Like, I mean, I am pretty. Like,
has there been a Star Wars book, and maybe you don't want to go on record on this, but you don't have to say what it is. Have you read any Star Wars canon novels where you were like, that was a rough one? I
never could get into Twilight Company, which is interesting because, and I think I've started it twice and just never could get into it. And I'm not sure if it's really the book or if it's me, that like the timing of like whatever, but like, I'll tell you that like so I love Alphabet Squadron and Shadowfall, like love them, can't wait for like the last one. And I know that he Alexander Freed also wrote the novelization to Rogue One, which I think is one of the only I think that's one of the only ones that I still haven't read. But there are several Star Wars books that just really weren't for me. Like, I couldn't like get into them. But for the most part, I can, you know, find something that I like about them. And
that's good. Yeah, that's cool. So Lacey, so you and I a year ago were at New York Comic Con, and the publishing panel was kicking off, and everybody was like, this is it. They're going to debut all of it. Do you remember, like, do you remember that? Remember? Like, yeah, I do.
We were, we actually had to like chill out and wait to get a spot because it was so full, because people were so positive they were going to announce something.
Like the whole Project Luminous thing, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it's called.
They kept teasing it. Yeah, Project Luminous. They kept teasing it and teasing it and teasing it. And then basically we got in the room and then they were like, surprise, it's coming in January. And we were like, what?
They announced another event. Yeah.
It was like a trailer for a trailer. Like when they put those out, sometimes they're like coming tomorrow, and it's like 2 seconds of a trailer, and you're like, so this is a trailer for a trailer, which is a commercial for a product. Oh, okay. No, but you know, we've had our theories, John. You brought it up yourself of like where this fit into the Star Wars plan for content and live action and comics and books, and was there a bigger picture? We'll probably never know, you know? Yeah. But I think I've said this before, I'm someone that kind of feeds off of others' energy and being excited about things, and no one can doubt that these authors are so excited about this project and have been working so hard about what's coming out and everything that's going on, and just seeing that and seeing the way they're reacting to it and how excited they are, even back at New York Comic Con last year, you can't help but be excited yourself for what's to come and what kind of cool stuff they could be doing. Because they had that whole video piece with Doug Chang and all this other stuff that you're just like, okay, what does it all mean? I think the thing I'm most excited for is going off of what John said earlier, which is like the freshness idea, and kind of what Amy was saying is like, there's no Skywalkers, like we're away from there. We're not doing that. This is something completely different in the sense that it's those characters aren't involved, but it's still Jedi and bad guys and good guys and that kind of thing, that still kind of rings true to what Star Wars is. But I'm just really, really pumped to meet new characters because, like Amy was saying, you meet new characters and all these different pieces of content, and then they never go anywhere.
You want to be invested.
Right. So like this is a whole new thing where you're getting a bunch of characters that are across multiple pieces of content and multiple things so that you can get as invested or maybe not as invested as you want, but there's still stuff there, which is exciting to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's smart too, because it's like Amy, you said, you know, if you don't want to read DJ Older's comics, you don't have to. But if you know that
YA books are usually really good, by the way. Just saying that.
Yeah.
Right.
Big
But
YA fan
and you know, he's apparently doing some of the Yoda stuff they revealed, so that might entice people to want to get into that. But you know, my two things here is you know, I do get overwhelmed with the amount of comics. So when you brought that up, Amy, that like hit me right here. Like my anxiety for like keeping up, because the only way I really keep up is the reviews, the spoiler reviews that our team does on Star Wars Newsnet. Like I read those to keep up. You know, I have, you know, the baby at home. We have, you know, another one coming. Like it's crazy. Like I don't always find time to do that. And knowing when they come out, like I don't know how people do it. I really don't. So that part of like, they're starting new in this era, and if you want to read these 6, they're going to be there and you can read them. I like that. But and then I liked also what you brought up about how they can use this block if they aren't going to expand upon them with other mediums, and just say this is going to be a nice 200-year chunk of canon that they could do with the literary, where you can, like, if there's a, you know, the 15-year-old Jedi who's like ahead of the game, and she's, you know, the Hermione of, as the author described it, of this group, where she's like, that's what they said at the panel. That
No,
she's
I know.
like,
I love that.
she's well ahead of the pack, and she's going to be like the best Jedi. Like we could see her at age 60 in a future book, and I think that's interesting, because then you could see that character kind of go through their prime, their post-prime, their regrets, mistakes, stuff like that, in a way that is all done now, where everyone's starting on page 1. Whereas, you know, with the Luke thing, people are like, well, I had this idea painted in my head what Luke was going to be when he was 65, and it didn't work out that way. Now it's like, we're all going on that path together, and you can't project, because we're all going to get that in the same way. So I find all that stuff interesting.
Well, I think what you're talking about too is that like it's not something that's going to be super, I don't think, spoiler heavy. Like I think it's more of a long-term thing that people can get invested in. It's not more like, I'm going to read this book really fast. Like, I mean, I've sometimes read Star Wars books way too fast just because I was just like, because I want to not avoid Twitter for like, you know, the time that I'm reading it, you know, like, and then it's like, it takes all the fun out of it. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I do try to avoid some spoilers. Some of them I don't, but like, if you can really like feel like it's a long-term thing, like you're going on this journey, and it's not about like a reveal or like what happened like short term. It's just more something you can kind of like have to look forward to for a considerable amount of time.
Right. Yeah.
Do you guys, just to pop off of what I was saying earlier about the, I hope people get involved in this. I mean, do you think this is going to bring in new people?
Real quick, because earlier today, I reached out to like 10 people I know who consider themselves Star Wars fans. Like they watched every movie. They love The Mandalorian. They're not diehards like us. They're not podcasting about Star Wars, but they are legitimate Star Wars fans. They have t-shirts. They go to all the movies. They watch the shows.
They have toys,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, they have the toys. 9 of them never heard of the High Republic. Never even heard of it. And the other one said he thought that was Amidala's era. And it was, you know, men, women, 10 people. It was like, it wasn't shocking to me, but it was surprising that they were like, never heard of it. I have to Google it and look it up. So I don't know if Disney and Lucasfilm Press are like, this is for our niche audience. We're not looking to reel people in. We just want to feed the people who love it. And maybe that's a good thing, because maybe then you're not trying to fan service the heck out of this thing and bring in a bunch of Yodas.
Well, it could be something that just grows naturally too. Like,
Right.
I think that, like 2 of the books are coming out on the same day. And then I think Claudia Gray's is coming out in February. It could be more of like a slow burn, and, people, and I think that there's a lot of people who, are still very bitter about, the legends in the extended universe, who I feel like I've seen like chatter from people who still seem quite bitter about all of that, who are like, but I'm going to try this because it reminds me of stuff that happened in Legends. And it's kind of like a fresh start. It's kind of like, well, like it's still Disney, but like I'm still gonna, I wonder if those people are going to be more, they didn't buy the tie-ins to The Rise of Skywalker. They didn't buy the tie-ins to like all these other things, but maybe they would buy those. I always wonder what the Thrawn books, like, what that is about. Like, who are, like, obviously they're selling really well because like it's like starting their next like trilogy, so it must do well for them.
We're giving another one.
Do it again.
Yeah,
I think that Timothy Zahn still being the guy has made the EU fans be like, I will read those, because
it's Timothy Zahn.
If it was anyone else, there'd be boycotts, they'd be burning them.
Do you think that a lot of Charles Soule comics fans are going to read his book though? Because like, I wonder, like, because like his comics have been so amazing and like so well received. I think that him having like the book that kicks it off is brilliant, and having Claudia Gray in there. I really like all 5 of those authors. Like, I was super excited about all of them. Like, I've interviewed most of them. They're also all really nice. I've interviewed all of them but one now. Like, so I feel like they're all super nice, which I appreciate, quite frankly, because
you need your last Infinity Stone.
Nice.
Come on.
But I know, I'll get the last one.
Right, the last one.
I don't know what the crossover is for like people who read comics, but then they're like, nah, I don't really do the books, or something like that. I feel like if you are reading Star Wars comics, you'd probably be open to reading one of the books as well. And probably vice versa. Like, if you're into the books, like, I would imagine you would probably dabble in the comics as well. I guess I'm just trying to think, like, it's so weird to me. Like, I feel like they're giving us a lot of information on characters and stuff that's going on. It almost feels like if they were pitching Star Wars to me, I feel like they're pitching who Luke is, who Han is, who Leia is, who background character is. Like, they set up the whole world, they've set up all the ships, like they've set up all this stuff, and I'm like, I just want to see the movie. I feel like right now we're in this point where like it's gonna hit, and then they're gonna be like, they're all out, all of them, and it's just gonna flood everybody with stuff. And I feel like they should be releasing more. We should already have some content, which we would have, right? But they need to like slow drip it to us a little bit better than I think what they're planning on doing, which is we're going to get a lot of High Republic content all at once. And I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence when it comes to the marketing of this. It's funny because I think in some cases it feels like we often say they're building it up and they're hyping it up, and I'm like, I don't think they are, because like what John is saying is 9 out of 10 people don't even know what it is. Like, why aren't we seeing like how a movie would advertise itself, like a YouTube ad that has the book and it says the new novel that breaks open the new era of Star Wars out this February or something like that. And it's just like a 15-second ad you can't skip, which would cause people to be like, oh, that's sweet, but we're not going to see that. Feels like the only people who are aware of this are people on Twitter and people who follow StarWars.com or news around sites that cover Star Wars news.
I still think they have a couple months though. Like, I think that it's not coming. I mean, like, so many things in publishing were delayed. This was delayed.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it was supposed to be August.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty big delay. Like, are they going to have those ads in The Mandalorian? Like, are they going to, like, at the beginning or the end? Like, are they going to have, I mean, because I honestly don't feel like I know about a lot of books before they come out. Like, I know very little about book marketing. But like,
no, that's what I'm saying.
So like, I don't really know. I can't compare
too.
it to other, things.
Right.
And so I do want, like, they did make like a bit of a trailer, which I haven't seen since they first did it. Like, it's unfortunate that it's been dragged out so long. Like, I was super like annoyed by how long the Project Luminous to like the High Republic reveal was. I was like,
yeah.
I think I had actually muted it because I was just like, I like, it's too long. I don't like teases. And so like, I was just like, I'm excited for it, but like, I just need you to tell me what it is.
You mean you don't like GIFs that have no context that people just put out that they're like...
No, every time everyone's like,
peeve.
I have really exciting news, but I can't tell you. I'm just like, oh yeah.
Why do you have to wait? Yeah.
Good for you, you know, like, like
tell me
but now I
tomorrow.
want to know what it is, and I have anxiety about it, even though you've told me it's good news. Like, you know, like,
even the New York Comic Con panel that was, you know, before recently, and there were so many things that were questions that were like, what characters are you excited about? And they're like, well, we can't talk about them, but there's one in this person's novel that you want to keep an eye on. And it's like, okay,
just tell me.
I don't get it.
Do you think like what's the word expectation? Like, you have to imagine this idea didn't come from Disney to be like, all right, let's launch this next era in Star Wars, the biggest movie franchise of all time, and we're gonna start with books. Like, I'm sure Bob Iger wasn't like, yeah, that's it. So this is obviously Michael Siglain and crew.
Bob being like, go books, go.
Yeah, right. That'll fill my pockets.
No, it's Bob. He says, I bet you're wondering why I gathered you here. I have this idea for Star Wars.
Right. So Michael Siglain and them put together the idea, and if it, my theory is not true that it wasn't supposed to be tied to those movies. I don't know. I still think it was, but the expectation, are they hoping it to be the next Twilight, the next Harry Potter, the next Hunger Games? Like, that's lofty expectations. I don't think that that's what they think. I think that I don't know that that's the case. And Amy, I think you're right in terms of books and marketing, because I don't always see ads for books, and I worked in publishing production for 12 years.
Book marketing usually like a book trailer, a couple Comic-Cons or conventions,
I think
and then
word
a
of
book
mouth
tour.
is like a huge thing with books, because it's always like, oh, do you hear? I read this book. Do you hear this book? And they like get people want to be a part of it. Like the 50 Shades of Grey thing, that thing took off just because everyone was like, I'm reading it. Like,
secretly
reading it? I'm
on
reading
a
it.
train.
So maybe
can one of these get on Oprah's book club?
Yeah,
is it possible?
So I don't know,
No,
like
because
probably
immediate
not.
bestseller.
I guess my last question is like, Amy, from your perspective and like how you see them promoting it and like being very like cryptic and that sort of thing, and they are doing the all at once almost release. Like, what would you, if you had to guess what their expectations are for this? Do you think it's like big time like Twilight, Harry Potter, Hunger Games, or do you think it's more modest? Let's keep it, with the diehard Star Wars fans, or do you think they would just want to, like you said, maybe see it grow organically?
I think it's more modest. I think that they're releasing a whole bunch of different things. Partially, if it was all adult novels or all YA novels, I don't think they would be all like, it's like, since it's different media, I think that they think that there are some people who will take in all of it, but there are some people who are only going to go after one author or another. And I feel like it's, I wonder if having all of it in different kind of publishing categories is the best way to go or not. Like, for me, I'm really excited about it because I don't care if it's YA and I don't care if it's adult or middle grade, but some people do. Like, and I'm very excited about with the comics. I think it's like the slow drip of the comics where, you can start from the beginning or you can just like catch up whenever you want. I do wonder if they're just kind of introducing a lot of things, hoping that more people will kind of get into at least part of it and then can go back and get it. I also wonder if some people will be confused about where to start. I think that like we've all kind of like, even though Justine Ireland's book is coming out the same day as Charles Soule's book is kind of being pitched as like this is the one that introduces the great disaster. So I think it's good to give people like, here's where you start. Sometimes I think it's confusing when you don't. Sometimes I think it's nice to know the order. I think sometimes maybe it's not, like, I think that by not giving an order, they're kind of signaling to you that it doesn't matter. And if you don't read one certain thing, you're not like missing out. Cause there are certainly some people who are like, well, I don't want to see like Infinity War because I have to see 20 movies before.
Right.
Even though my daughter is proof that that's not true. She like, she saw those movies in a bizarre order and she's only seen a few of them, but she really liked them. But that's teenage girls for you, but like they'll just make it work out. But I think that when they were looking at publishing, like what can we do, I think that a lot of the people in publishing like were around or were fans of Star Wars when like the new Jedi Order was out or the X-Wing books were out and there were these big series, and I think that they knew that there was an appetite for more of an episodic kind of thing. And so, and I think that just a bigger collaboration between, a lot of artists. So I hope people are excited about it. I'm very excited about it.
Sure.
All I need to know is it's 200 years before the Phantom Menace, and I'm like, so old,
Yeah.
So I'm
somewhere new.
I'm kind of ignoring not ignoring, but all the characters. Like I'm horrible with character names and remembering who anyone is or anything like that, or even the names of these books. Like if you asked me, I would not know. And so don't ask me, please. But I'm kind of I think it's fun to see kind of some familiar names and everything like that. But I'm not spending time understanding who these characters are. Sure. I did a 365 post about Ava Chris, so I know a little bit about her, but that's it. I don't. Right. Mm-hmm. The other ones I'm just going to wait to figure out when I read the stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you said it perfectly. You said I'm excited for this, and I hope other people are excited for this. That's where I came from on my other answer. It's where I've been coming here. I think my biggest takeaway from this entire discussion is now I'm starting to think, you need to figure out how to market books differently, specifically to this audience. Because, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Amy, that, the Thrawn Chaos Rising book is great, and people really aren't reading it. You kind of have to really convince them to be look, it's this other area over here. It's taking place. You can start with that one. It's the beginning of this really cool trilogy. It's going to pay off because the other books have paid off, and there's so much going for it, and yet still people aren't checking it out. And that's what scares me about the High Republic. I want to click on a video, a nerdy video, or Star Wars video, or whatever it is, and I want to see an ad for this book pop up, and I want regular people to go, oh, that's sweet. That looks cool. And them to say it's a new journey. It's a new thing. Get started with this book. It comes out this day, the High Republic, and show some of these images of the people with the medieval looking lightsabers and stuff. It's I think just if more people were aware of it, and it's probably has to do with posters in stores that aren't Barnes and Nobles, do marketing elsewhere and get it in front of people. And I think YouTube is a good example of that. Audible should be pushing these, it should have Mark Thompson doing character voices and you can hear them. And then they advertise that it comes in hardcover and in audio form, and stuff like that.
I still think we're just getting the drip. I think that there's still a couple months. And so I think that
yeah, but that's never taken place though. It's not taken place for any of the books. It hasn't taken place,
but I do think that this is a bigger thing, that they probably do have a bigger budget to do that. Although this is,
and that's
such
why
a
this is our expectations. I want that to be the case.
Yeah. So I hope that is the case too. I would love to see I hadn't thought of it before, but the idea of having a trailer at the beginning or the end of a Mandalorian episode. I really hope that
that'd be sweet.
That would be amazing. I'm with you though, with Chaos Rising. I think that there's a lot of people who really didn't like the first 3 Thrawn books. That was kind of an interesting thing. They didn't care about Thrawn. They thought Thrawn was annoying and he was obnoxious because he just you're figuring out all these things. Congratulations. I know a lot of people who don't like Thrawn. I know a lot of people who love.
I've heard of Sherlock too.
I know a lot of people who also love Thrawn. I liked the first book. Atlantis, I liked quite a bit. Treason, I didn't like at all. And I don't know what that was. Because it's the same author. That story just didn't click with me. I was assuming that the Chaos book was going to be very, very similar, and I was just I devoured that book. I've tried explaining it to people, and they're no, it's Thrawn. It's a whole bunch of apostrophes. No, and I'm no. Listen to me.
Chaos Rising and the Ascendancy, that whole world, that probably should be a Disney Plus show.
I opened up that book and they were the 9 Chiss families. I'm
and I'm
Game of Thrones, it's
oh
Lord
my
of the
gosh,
Rings.
yeah, Lord of the Rings, exactly. I'm this is nuts. There's lore everywhere.
If they polled, if they did a lie detector test or polled all the people who read all those Throne books and were did you understand everything you read? I bet 80% would be I don't know.
I mean, it's actually it's actually for any Star Wars book. I'm anytime people ask me about Star Wars characters, I'm I have no idea how you say that.
Right.
Well, yeah,
and
that
honesty is so refreshing because sometimes the books can be so overwhelming, and it's all these things happen, and it's
Amy, my thing is timelines, where things happen. in the timeline of Star. I'm like, I don't know when anything happens.
Yeah.
I just know that they
And
happen.
books are bad for that because they skip around sometimes, and that makes it more confusing. I think sometimes, like when we were talking about Alexander Freed earlier, I think Alexander Freed is hard to follow. So oftentimes I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But when it comes to Timothy Zahn, I know what's happening. He makes it very clear what's happening. The hard part of his stuff is pronunciation of words and titles and things like that. I get it. I do understand. But like, he puts a lot of detail that sometimes is like not always necessary. So it's cool because it's there and it exists. But I feel like if you did poll people, like you were saying, John, about like how much of that did you understand? I understand it all.
Or absorb.
I don't retain all the details.
Well, yeah, the absorbing. I mean,
Yeah.
because like if you ask me anything that happened in the Aftermath trilogy, I got nothing for you. Like, I mean, because
Right.
like I feel like every time, like, and I enjoyed reading those books, but like I remember, like I was like, oh yeah, I have a huge crush on Timothy Olyphant. I think, like, and so I'm very excited that he's going to be not as much as Ewan McGregor, but he's, you know,
Oh, you
but.
Fine
And so I'm
wine,
very
that man.
like I was like, oh, like who is he rumored to be like in the Mandalorian? I was like, Cobb Vanth. I'm like, yeah, I just can never remember who he is. And then like I look up his Wikipedia page, and I'm like, yeah, looks like he was in all of them, but I don't
read
remember
it.
that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I
Yeah,
don't really
like-
remember that.
Like last shot, like James, you said, it bops around so much. And like, what's your takeaway
Yeah.
from that book? I'm like a hacker Ewok.
Yeah.
The heck,
I liked Aftermath though because it felt like Rebels to me. It felt like you learned this core group of like 5 or 6
I
people.
liked it too,
and
but
then
did I?
you just follow their
I
journey through.
sometimes don't
Yeah.
remember.
Right.
don't remember
Yeah, if they did like
anything, so-
No, I understand
Star
that,
Wars
yeah.
trivia with the books, like a lot of people would get annihilated.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we're up against it. So to wrap up, anyone have any final thoughts on it? We're obviously a few months out. So, maybe Amy, you come back on after it comes out and we absorb the content and have more of a discussion on it. But obviously this is all like speculation and mainly, because we don't know a lot about it, I wanted to, arrow this in the direction of expectations on how it's going to do and that sort of thing. So do you have any final thoughts on it? Predictions on, what might be your favorite? You sound like you're a Charles Soule person, Jesse in Ireland. So what are you most excited about and what's your biggest expectation to close it out?
What am I the most excited about? I really just adored Charles Soule's comics, and I've not read any of his novels. I know he's written some, so I'm excited about that one. And I'm excited about Kevin Scott's Marvel comic.
Right.
I was excited that he did the Marvel one and not the IDW one, because I thought because like he's done Star Wars IDW stuff before, and so I thought it was nice to kind of mix up the, where he's writing and the kind
Right.
of like, the targeted range.
Right. Older's doing the IDW one, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I think they said that's where Yoda's going to pop in. I don't know if he's popping in this other thing, but so James and Lacey, any last quick final thoughts on expectations as we're a few months out?
I'm excited for Charles Soule's book, which I've said, I think, from like day one of this whole thing, which is like 10 years ago. It feels like. But I do have one question, which I can't figure out. And it's if Stellan Gios, the character from his book, has a beard or not.
I think they just added a beard.
Right. But the poster they've been pushing around, he does not have a beard. He looks like Captain America. So they're pushing both concept art. And I just want to know, Charles Soule, if you're listening, does Stellan Gios have a beard? Or does he not? Is he rugged or is he like clean?
The sponsors like Gillette. They're like,
I need to
High
know.
Republic
It's a
brought
major
to you
plot
by-
point, Lacey.
Yeah.
You don't want him to
I
see
need
it to like
to
spoil
know.
this major plot point.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
It's like a beard to die for is like his book. Like,
So James, what's your final expectations?
Oh. Only thing is, there's no movie out to argue about and try to get too upset about or whatever. So in the meantime, pick up a book. That's the only thing I got.
Right.
Is maybe go with us on the journey. Trust that they have something special set aside and pick it up and don't just quit after that first one. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't like The Light of the Jedi, and then it's like, so that whole thing is dumb. It's like, well, there's a lot that's going on with it, so
Right.
maybe bear with it if you're not feeling it right away. Give it some time. But let's see if we can get a couple more people into books and understanding, that world of Star Wars.
Right on. And let us know in the comments what your expectations are. Are you excited? Do you feel like you need more info?
Does Stellan have a beard or not?
Does he have a beard or not? And which one are you most excited about? Are you excited about the characters? Do you think they're expanded upon it? All the things, all the ideas you have, and your thoughts on our discussion about it too, of course, in the comments. And hit us up on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Or if you're a little shy, like I am sometimes, email resistancebroadcast@gmail.com. But now we are going to hear from you in Ask the Resistance. So you guys ready to answer a few questions?
Are you going to throw it to yourself?
I'm not going to throw it to myself. Do you want to? Can you do Ask the Resistance, please?
You want me to do it?
I would like for you to do it.
All right. Guys, it's time for Ask the Resistance.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
So this is our segment where you guys get to ask your questions to us via Twitter. So we're going to kick it off first with Geeky Gator Crocodile at _Geeky Gator, who asks, chances each of these characters' names are said/mentioned in season 2 of Mando. So we have Ezra Bridger, Thrawn, Luke Skywalker, Yoda, Emperor Palpatine, Leia Organa, IG-11, or Queel. So, Amy, since you love character names and you can remember them all.
Of course, yes. These are pretty easy, though.
Any characters here that stick out to you, do you think they're going to be mentioned in season 2 of Mando?
I wonder if Ahsoka will mention Ezra. Because I feel like that would be just a hilarious moment on Twitter, personally.
Yes, it definitely
would. I do imagine that. I think that everyone is just assuming that you're going to get the Ahsoka, Ezra, Thrawn animated adventure continuation, and so I wonder if that might happen. The Yoda one I thought was the most interesting, because you wonder if they're going to figure out. Although I somehow kind of doubt it. I kind of thought that the most likely ones were looking at Ezra. I kind of felt like Luke and Leia were more I don't see Palpatine being mentioned in here. I guess
neither did I. And then
it's not that far away from the Emperor. Who knows what Moff Gideon's going to talk about?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny because I actually thought Palpatine might be my number one most likely.
Interesting. And why do you think that?
Just because I think that they could. I mean, he's an easy tie-in to the era that was and the era that is coming up. Although, I mean, I think it would be cool to mention any of these other characters. Mentioning any of these other characters almost feels like fan service than it does to who are our main characters and who is what's the overlying story. Moff Gideon very much belongs to the Empire, and the Empire is a part of Palpatine, whereas every other one of these characters are Thrawn, Ezra, Luke, they're all players in the game, but they're not I don't know, we know them, but they're not prominent in the galaxy other than maybe potentially Luke Skywalker now, because I think he became a little bit more of the poster child of the rebellion and stuff, but I don't know. It's tricky.
I don't
John?
I think my highest is Palpatine.
John?
I hope they don't say Luke and Leia. We got to keep the distance, I think, as much as we can. I think 2 will be mentioned. I think Palpatine could definitely be mentioned or referred to as the Emperor, not necessarily by name. Keep it close to that Return of the Jedi vernacular. And I think it would be very interesting if Ahsoka somehow comes across Baby Yoda and she's not entirely familiar with the species and she mentions Yoda or something.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we always Twitter around the idea. Imagine if Force Ghost Yoda visits Baby Yoda and he's like, "Hello, cousin. How are you?"
Yeah, I like that and the Ezra thing.
Yeah,
Ezra would be interesting, but I wonder if they're gonna save that for the Ezra show.
I would be surprised, but that's what I would like.
The Ezra show. Come on down, everybody. I'm over here on this Purgle
with this blue man.
And
with this
Ezra Bridger.
All right, next up is Rogue Leader Red 2 at Red2 Leader, and they asked, do you think Ahsoka's staff is embedded with Kyber so she can wield it like a magic staff? This is a very Gandalf question. Amy, what do you think?
I thought that was a really interesting question. I actually meant to like look at her staff like from the end of Rebels because I don't remember what it exactly looks like. I think the idea of her using a kyber crystal in a different way because she's not a Jedi, but she still has Force powers is a really intriguing one. So I think that could be fun. I would be pro that idea.
You shall not pass, John. What do you think?
So James, in comparison to Mando, where does Ahsoka showing up to Sabine to say we gotta go get our boy fall in time?
Shoot, now I'm on the spot. I want to say that's
now you both
either
know how it feels to be the timeline person.
Because they weren't like 8 years
say,
later, right? They were just kind of like vague about it.
I think they were vague.
I think they
just said after the Battle of Endor. I mean,
for some reason, two numbers are coming to mind: 2 years or 5 years.
Okay,
Filoni's got
I know 5 years is the same as Mandalorian, and I think that has always been significant. That it's like, right. 5 years. That's exactly the same.
My answer then is Ahsoka's going to be using lightsabers in the Mandalorian. She's going to be wrecking some house. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like she has the staff. We may not see it on screen, but she's going to be like, "I've had enough of this hermit." She's going to snap that thing and throw it away and get the lightsabers and go to work. So I'm going to say no kyber. I think the staff is like her, like, I'm taking a break thing.
Her walkabout.
Yeah. Like that's her taking a break thing. Like I'm not going to work right now. And then when it's work time, that big heavy cloak comes off and the lightsabers come out and she throws the staff away. So I think no kyber in the staff.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Watch now. It's going to be this like wand.
To me, it just seems it's a cool idea, but as a Lord of the Rings fan, it's very Gandalf. Very like I've got a staff, I'm a wizard type thing. And this is going to sound so lame, but like I like to separate like my Harry Potter, Lord of the Ring from Star Wars.
Respect.
And so that's why I'm saying no. It would be cool if it happened though. Like always, it's going to be awesome whether it happens or not. But all right, last question. I'm assuming is from us, John.
Yeah.
And it's for Amy. Amy, if you had a one-on-one off the record chat with Kathleen Kennedy and could ask her one question, what would you ask her and why?
This is a mean question. Like, this has been bothering me for hours. I'm like, what do I have? Well, because I was like, do I go to like Zapruder and be like, tell me what happened here? Like what was really there? Like, where is that person buried? Or do I go to the first, honestly, like if I had her and I was like, I got to have some sort of super secret thing, I think I would ask her if there was still a cut of Rogue One before all the reshoots and if I could see it.
Ooh.
I am completely obsessed with the making of Rogue One. I love Rogue One. I think that film is basically like a miracle. Like it's almost virtually a perfect film to me. I love that it was messy and that it somehow came out so beautifully. Like we've seen a little bit of like the trailers. I totally get why they haven't like released more stuff. Like, cause I mean, it's like, I don't mean to like, it sounds mean to say like you're happy it's a mess because like I'm sure it was super stressful.
Right.
Yeah.
But everyone like it wasn't like anyone screwed up. It was just like, like things weren't working out and then like they brought in
it happens.
I mean, I think that like, and actually, Gareth seemed to like, embrace what was going on. And so I think that was kind of the best of both worlds. I would love to know more about what was that initial cut? Like when they realized like we're in trouble.
The Edwards cut.
Yeah.
You want to release the Edwards cut.
I'll release all the cuts. Just don't take away any cuts.
Right.
All of them. But I would like to see what that is, just because part of my fascination, like lifelong with Star Wars, is understanding filmmaking and understanding like how that is like a lifelong love of cinema for me. And so like I like to understand like what was messed up, how did they fix it? Like I would be fascinated to know that.
Do you have a favorite piece of trivia about the making of Rogue One that a lot of people don't know that you like to drop as an anecdote in conversation? Or
no, I'm like thinking, do I have? I don't know. I think that a lot of regular people who are Star Wars fans have no idea that there was anything going on.
Right.
And so like, I think that like I've talked to a couple of people about that. I think a lot of people also don't understand like what happened with Solo. I mean, like there's been so much turmoil over like directors and all of that stuff.
Normal people really don't. They just know that.
Yeah,
everyone hated The Last Jedi.
Because like that's true for me with other, things. Like I don't keep up with other franchises the same way that I keep up with
Right.
yours.
Right.
Really, I would ask her for a job. Like if I was
please, can you help a girl
Off the
out?
record, give me a job right now. Yeah.
General fans definitely know when like a director changes. Like when they hear that news, they're like, "Oh, I don't know what that means," but they switch directors. But they definitely don't know that like Kenobi's on their like sixth writer or something.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So we're gonna head back to John to bring it home.
All right. So first, Amy, thank you so much for spending time with us here. We're looking at about an hour and a half almost. So we appreciate you taking the time. Very generous of you.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
So plug away, social media, your website, anything you're working on, anything coming up that you can reveal the Star Wars Insider stuff. So have at it, whatever you want people to check out.
Sure. So my website is 365starwars.com. You can find me mostly on Twitter at Amy Rickow, AMYRICHAU. 365_Star Wars also is a Twitter account, which I don't use quite as much. But you can find my stuff on StarWars.com, Star Wars Insider, and I have some other stuff that I can't talk about.
Ooh.
You just did what you said you hated people doing.
All right, James, Lacey, and me.
Obi-Wan Kenobi gift.
If you could ask Amy Rickow one question off the record, what would... No. All right, great.
Love it.
We want to thank everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. Appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to the show because we have 2 episodes every week, Monday and Thursday. And the Mando Fan Show is coming back 2 weeks from tomorrow.
15 days.
15 days. 2 weeks from tomorrow on 10:30. Not at 10:30, but that's the date. But you can subscribe on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate that. And it's free to subscribe too. Go to StarWarsNewsNet.com. For all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. I'll be doing some written reviews of the Mando episodes over there. If you'd like to support us, patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. Tiers start at $2 every month. We have 10 mini episodes every month. If you're not tired of us, you want more of us, go check us out over there. And we want to say a special thank you to our generals on Patreon. We always want to shout out to Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Micah Harrison, Michael Gaines, Jetta Rosewater, the Trivia Queen, Bethany, Russ Harbison, and Kendall Gellner. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate it very much. You can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and Star Wars Newsnet. James?
Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks. And I did look it up. It's 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
So that's right in that wheelhouse.
Time.
Yeah, close.
It was The Mandalorian, yeah.
All right. Lacey?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
All right. We hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Amy, thank you so much for joining us. Amy Rickow, everybody. Thank you. And we'll see everybody on Monday morning with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. We'll see you around, kids.